I said, guess who's back? Man, guess who's back? I said, guess who's back? What's going on, guys? It's Backchat TV, and I'm back with another reaction to the UFC 296, which just finished a little while ago. I still haven't actually watched all the fights. It's just a quick early reaction to some of the fights that I've seen so far. The main event, Covington versus Edwards. This was the much anticipated matchup, basically for kind of negative reasons. At first, it was anticipated because they're supposed to be two of the best. Obviously, Leon being the best at the moment, and Covington supposedly supposed to be, you know, almost at the top. You know, having close fights with Usman. People want to know how he was going to do against Leon Edwards, and he was very disappointing, extremely disappointing. You know, I'm not the biggest Colby Covington fan. I don't like his personality, whether it is a character or real life. I don't like both sides of his character, the real person and the ridiculous antics that he gets on with in the ring and leading up to fights. I'm not a fan of a huge disrespectful kind of character. I know you've got people like Conor McGregor, who was quite polarizing in his character, but I liked Conor McGregor because I feel like that was his real personality, and as long as you're real, you know, that's fine. If you're really a kind of a aggressive character, be that character. You know, if you're not that character, just be who you are. But Covington, his whole persona just seems so fake that it's so off-putting. You know, but the one redeemable thing about him was that he can fight, and he's a good martial artist, and he puts a lot of pressure like we've never seen in the cage, and stamina like we've never seen. You know, and he's a great wrestler. And these kind of accolades, this is what I want to see from him. If I was going to see anything, I want to see him back up some of the trash talk, and he didn't do any of that. I was quite surprised he didn't do any of that. But actually, a lot of people say they're very surprised, but I'm not that surprised, because in the first round, remember, Covington's been off for a little while, a little bit of ring rust. But I don't think that was the major thing. I think it was all to do with Leon Edwards. Leon Edwards, he's control of distance, he's control of range. He's very, very fast, deceptively fast with his strikes. He's a very careful, precise, accurate striker. You know, from the beginning, he was landing those leg kicks, and they were having a big effect. You saw the big bruising on the back of Covington's leg early on, and Covington couldn't get a read. When a few times he tried early on, he could tell that Leon was ready. You know, and Leon just doesn't give you anything. He's not an emotional person, apart from what happened with Covington's talking about his dad. But other than that, he is quite clinical. He doesn't make many mistakes. You know, I've heard a lot of people saying that Covington should have done more. He should have done this, he should have done that, he should have gone for this and that. It's very easy to say, but when you're in there, you know, you can tell that Leon Edwards is razor sharp. His control of distance is really good. If Colby was to come in a little bit clumsy, he would have got tagged straight away. You know, he couldn't find that entry point. And because of that, you know, obviously, he actually caught a few shots early on, and I think he felt the power, and I think he felt the physicality early on, and he thought, you know what, I'm not going to get stopped, because he probably would have got stopped the first mistake he made if he tried to lunge in like he normally does. You know, he couldn't run in there, you know, throwing knees and jumping on Leon like he did against Dos Anjos or one of these other guys, you know, pushing the pace. Leon is just not the type of guy you can push the pace with the way that Colby Covington fights. You know, if he was to maybe present a lot of different threats, you know, on the feet, also going for the takedowns and a lot of feints and a lot of angles, and, you know, maybe, but it's still very hard to get Leon to bite on any feints or anything that could lead Covington to get on the inside and get a single leg, which he eventually got a single leg. I think it was in the third round. But it was very difficult for Covington to do anything. And that's what Leon actually does against his opponents. I mean, like I said, he's distance control, he's anticipation of his opponent's strikes and stuff. He's very he's quite defensive in his posture. At the same time, you know, if you make a mistake, he can capitalize on that very quickly, and he doesn't make a lot of mistakes. And it was just difficult for Covington to really find an angle where he could kind of create that chaos. You know, he likes to throw a lot of punches. He likes a situation, or a fighter, an opponent I should say, where he can kind of threaten them in lots of different ways. You know, takedowns, throwing a lot of punches, his stamina, throwing flying knees, you know, leg kicks, everything, and he kind of gets you in this kind of chaos. And there's certain fighters you can do that to, and certain fighters you can't do that to. You can't rush Leon Edwards. He's always ready and waiting for you to rush in. And Covington knew this, so this is why he had to fight differently. So the first round, you know, he was literally very, very tentative. Leon, to be fair, was quite tentative also, because I think he was surprised that Covington didn't come forward like he normally does, and he was scared that there was probably, you know, he was trying to set up a trap against Leon. So he was being careful also. Remember, he's a champion. He's got no reason to rush in. This is what often happens when fighters become champions. They often fight hard to become the champion, so they're often quite exciting. But when they become the champion, they often fight quite defensive so they can keep the belt. And then this is when they get the hate and the dislike. Same thing happened with Tyron Woodley. Tyron Woodley, before he was champion, he was one of the most explosive fighters, getting amazing knockouts, and he had power in both hands, and he was very explosive. But when he became champion, we saw him not wanting to lose the belt, so he was more defensive, waiting to counter instead of initiating, and then people started to hate against him. You know, this is what happens with a lot of fighters, and I feel like the same thing's going to happen with Leon's style. I think Leon will probably start to be hated soon, because if you don't give him any opportunity, he doesn't necessarily take the opportunity. He's kind of a counter puncher. He's very sharp. You cannot make any mistakes. But he's not a fighter to really just go and get you, you know. So I expect some hate against Leon, not just for this performance, but in general, because of his fighting style. He's very difficult to beat. But yeah, the fight itself didn't live up at all to the trash talk. Covington couldn't find his way in the first round, couldn't find his way in the second round. He was getting taken apart with the leg kicks, which he unanswered leg strikes. He never attempted to do the same to Leon. Leon also outstruck him on the feet, as we would have expected. He landed the more accurate shots, but few and far between as well. They told Colby Covington after round 2, in round 3, beginning of round 3, that he has to do something because he's losing. And then we saw him kind of step it up a little bit and start to, you know, attack in some ways. But again, Leon was ready for a lot of these attacks. And Leon actually embarrassed Covington even more when Leon was the first person to, after, I think it was the 3rd round, Leon actually took Covington down. And he threatened him with two submission threats. Took him down. I think one was a rear naked choke that Leon got him in, that Covington actually got out of, but that was pretty close. And I think he had another attempt as well. But in the 5th round, Leon actually made a mistake when he was taking Colby down, and Colby was able to scramble and escape. He managed to end up on top. Now, this was his one and only opportunity to do something. You would have thought he would have really been aggressive and land some, you know, meaningful strikes, but he didn't really. You know, the strikes were these little kind of pity-patty strikes. They weren't really making any difference. He didn't really go for it. Maybe, I think he just doesn't have the talent, you know. But having said that, I actually think Covington is a good fighter. He's not great, that's the problem, but he's a good fighter. You know, he's on the wrong side of 35. He is a good fighter. He will give a lot of other fighters a lot of trouble. You know, there are still some good fights for him. He called out Wonder Boy, another person who doesn't really have power. So him versus Wonder Boy, Covington versus Wonder Boy would be a matchup that I would watch. To be honest, I think Covington probably win that kind of fight because I kind of feel like neither of them really have any power. You know, Wonder Boy is a good fighter, but he doesn't really deter people with his power. It's more, you know, the fact that he's kind of elusive and stuff like that. So this would be a good fight for Covington. I'd like to see maybe that fight. I think another good fight would be probably Gilbert Burns versus Colby Covington. That would be a good fight. I think Gilbert Burns would win that fight and end Colby Covington's career, which is something I would look forward to be honest. I don't like his character. Now I don't like his fighting style. I don't have any reason to watch him anymore. His fighting style was the only thing that was drawing me to watch him because I didn't really like his character. And now, you know, I don't think he's a threat to the top guys. And if we look at some of the up-and-coming young guys, like Shavkat Rakhmonov, I think I said that correct. If we look at guys like him, you know, I think Colby doesn't stand a chance against these young, hungry guys that are going to come in and just demolish him, you know. I just don't think he wants to fight these younger guys. He's showing his age now. You know, he had a back and forward with Strickland. Strickland would completely destroy him. I don't know why he's even trying to bite off more than he can chew with Strickland. You know, he's a runner-up. Always going to be a runner-up. He's never going to win. He's never going to win the title because Leon's going to be dominant for a long while. And there are a whole bunch of people who are still better than Colby Covington. The only thing Colby Covington has going for him is the trash talk, to be honest. And after all the things he said about, you know, Leon's dad, and then doubling down on it afterwards, saying that he doesn't care, you know, I just don't even really want to hear from the guy. But yeah, he could have redeemed himself here. He had one chance. He had a chance at the title, which he didn't really deserve. And, you know, he failed, basically. That's enough said about him. A few other mentions. We had another anticipated fight was Paddy Pimblett versus Tony Ferguson. Tony Ferguson's tough, man. I didn't expect him to win. You know, he's 39 going on 40. He's had some really bad injuries. And I mean, it was always going to be difficult coming up against a young, up-and-coming fighter. Put a lot of pressure on Ferguson, was punching hard, you know, kicking hard. He was physically stronger. But to me, I mean, I'm a fan of Tony Ferguson, you know. Even though he lost, it felt like a win to me, you know. I just think he's just a tough guy. He really gave a good performance, I think, against, you know, like the much younger guy in a way, you know, just kind of redeemed himself a little bit in effort is what I'm talking about. Not in outcome, unfortunately, but in effort. You know, he's a guy who will give you a tough fight until the end, you know, and I like that about him. But, you know, unfortunately, before this fight, I said the same things that I'm going to say now. In all the times that he's been a veteran, you know, in this game, he still makes the same mistakes. He's never changed or altered his style. You know, maybe he's slightly more defensive, a little bit careful about what's coming back at him, but he still does the same kind of things. He's got virtually no takedown defense whatsoever. And I think that's because he's quite confident on the ground. So when he is on the ground, he's still quite elusive. He's still quite difficult to hit clean when he's on his back. And obviously we know he often you know, strikes from the bottom with the elbows. He likes to go for the triangle a lot of the times, but it doesn't always work. You know, it doesn't always work, and it didn't work against Paddy, although he kind of delayed the end. It didn't really work against Paddy Pimblett either. He was still losing the round. And there's a lot of things Ferguson has to fix, and unfortunately, he's too old. That's the problem. If this version of Ferguson was 28, you could say, okay, we got some things. We got a good fighter here, but we got some things to change, you know. Get that takedown defense, you know, get him getting his hands up more, You know, he often throws shots and doesn't get his hands up and gets clipped, and I don't know why. It seems as if he's quick enough to get his hands back and get his hands up, but he just doesn't seem to do it for some reason. So his defense is lacking. Like I said, if he was younger, he could make a lot of changes, but I think he's always fought with a certain style, and like they said, a leopard can't change his spots. It's definitely the case with Ferguson. I don't want to see him be like food for all these young guys coming up. I don't think it's good for him to take heavy shots now against these guys. You know, his punch resistance kind of is still there. It's still not easy to stop him, but at the same time, you know, he's definitely, you know, he's getting older. Having said that, part of his camp was training with Goggins, and I did see an improvement in his stamina, although he's got great stamina anyway. I mean, like I said, although he's never had, Ferguson has never had an issue with his stamina, at almost 40 years old, you know, you're gonna have to put work into your stamina, no matter who you are. So I think training with Goggins was quite a good idea, and he did look fit. He looked in great shape. You know, he was fighting at a really good pace. I know he always seems like that, but he seemed to have a bit more kind of a spring in his step. So I do think it kind of helped him. But I feel like, and conversely, Paddy was the one who looked tired because he tried to finish it in the second round, and so he got tired after that. And Ferguson could have come on strong there, you know, but stamina is not the issue with Ferguson, you know, it's skills, you know. There's things that he still does in there, like I said, makes these same mistakes, and they're the things that often end in him getting finished. Fortunately for Ferguson, he didn't get finished in this fight. He went the full 5 rounds, and you know, it was a unanimous decision, I think, in the end. Stephen Wonderboy Thompson lost to Rachmanov. I think it was a rear naked choke. I mean, he tapped in the end anyway, so it was like a submission win for Rachmanov. But it wasn't his best performance. It's hard to actually have a good performance against Wonderboy because of his style. You know, he is very tricky, as we know, and Rachmanov didn't look great against him. Nevertheless, he still got the win against another aged fighter in Wonderboy. I think he's 40 now, and even when he was younger, he never really had power. It was more his angles and his precision and those kicks, you know, that used to really be a threat. And although he's still a threat in that way, he doesn't really have this knockout power. You know, at that age, not having the knockout power, it just doesn't really translate anymore, because obviously he hasn't got the youth anymore. And I think it's going to be difficult going forward for Wonderboy, to be honest. Definitely, I'm not saying an end of an era, but it's definitely coming to that for some of the older fighters. Colby Covington included, Wonderboy included in that. You know, I think we're going to see Tony Ferguson, we're going to see retirement speeches from these guys very soon, and a new generation coming up. Overall, I would say it was an average card, average performances. It was okay. I wouldn't say it was bad. I've seen worse, you know, but the main event and the co-main event didn't really live up to the hype. Pantoja, he won. He retained his title against Brandon. But other than that, I don't think, you know, both fights, co-main and main event, they weren't really that exciting. I think Leon Edwards is going to have to do a lot better if he's going to become this star. He's in position, you know, great title defenses against Usman, and now not so great against Covington, but we're going to have to see more. We're going to have to see him be more aggressive for the fans to really get behind him, because like I said, when you're a champion, you really want to, a lot of champions become more defensive because they've now got something to protect. But the fans still want to see that aggressive come forward style, which got you to be a champion. Kind of a catch-22 situation for when you become a champion. But let's see what happens. Let's see some other people's reaction. Do you feel that Leon Edwards is just as guilty for the performance as Covington? Should Covington have done more? Should Leon have done more? And the obvious question is, should they both have done more? Let me know what you think. I'm on to the next one. I said, guess who's back? Man, guess who's back? I said, guess who's back? If you enjoyed this video, please leave me a like, comment, and consider subscribing to my channel. Thank you.